You love me, don't really know. Join me for some humanity. I just got it on autoplay, and I was doing this anyways. So I was like, oh, I haven't like hung out with you guys in a while, in this way, just singing, you know. So just like I'll play music and sing, maybe say something like this, you know, if things keep rolling. It's a nice song, but it's a little less sing-worthy. It's a little just like I just feel like some with a little more twang. I'll be with you in a second. I'm doing. I'm clipping my nails, which is like a meditation, which is also why I thought to of you. So I was like, yo, zero meditation. Oh. Coming out only to throw you down, only to show the outside of love, love, love. Every occasion I'll be waiting for love so much. For sports consume. Numbering occasion longing for love and love. Beautiful and you're beautiful and we're all having a good time, then that's a lot of bandwidth. Also, it gives me the chance to talk about something I'm very passionate about, and that is light, sound, noise pollution. Midday funeral. The outside of the we are also witnessing is like obviously, but I don't know, I'm calling attention to it, is I guess I'm witnessing my own seamless integration of like intuition and like matter and flow, right? Like that Ebra of the song gave me the intuitive insight of plugging it in. I looked, like I took in my surroundings, and I was like, okay, that goes there, and it fits. It feels good. All that happening in just like a moment, but happening in a moment because of lots of practice around knowing what feels good and kind of moving into it, but also being moved by it. Will it give better reception? Yeah, but I don't know if that's the point. It's not the only point. Part of like our non-local, non-linear, multifaceted crystal self is in creation, with creation, as creation, and creating with creators. is almost nothing that we do is the reason that we do it. Which is why, spiritually, soulfully, and truly, the only thing that matters is what you do uh, meaningfully. Because that ripples across space time, it ripples across communities, it ripples across physics. It's the truth. And if you can cultivate and like thrive on any kind of personal harmony, like it doesn't matter if you're singing or coloring or gardening or playing video games or uh, collecting stamps. Like I'm trying to get abstract. Being abstract, it's that harmonious level of attention, like attentiveness, is akin to love. And like think of the harmony being created in all the microorganisms and all the atomic structures and all the energetic streams flowing through the cosmos, through you, through us. And if we're like a hunk of planet, hunk of burning planet, running through, like flying, literally like flying through some kind of outer space, then we're traveling distance. And the frequential energetic expressions of ourselves might not have the hugest impact on our immediate environment. Like you might not think that you're going to make the world a better place by the way that you stamp collect, but you totally are, because that joy, it ripples, and it also kind of stays in place. Like the earth is now like 180,000 kilometers farther than it was like a second ago in relative space. So that's where you, like, and that feeling just were when you were it. And it's interacting with all the other like cosmic, like, I don't know, flow. But it's also there because it's mingling with all the other cosmic flow and it belongs there. And like a pond, dropping a pebble in it that ripples outward towards infinity. It will continue to do so until it gets interfered destructively, like something cancels it out, or it combines with something that is it and greater. And so, by the way, the joy that you feel when you do anything, but also that how you do it, like if you're doing it for its best expression and for the love of it, then that love, it transcends the stamps, it transcends you and physicality, but it travels through space and time. So it affects, as much as anything almost, the ripples that the future are living in. And so, because the future is, and time is an interesting thing, but it's unwritten, we can radically change the future, instant to instant, if need be, by the way that we hold ourselves in any instant. And then that future, positively charged, I don't know if it's positive or negative, but I said positive, so let's roll with it. It's like, it sets like a future place to be, like harmony upstream because there's harmony downstream. That is such an interesting visualization. And so all of a sudden, you might find harmony in the greater structures of your life. But it takes letting go of the false structures. And all those are, we can call them politics, we can call them society, we can call them money, but all false structures are the ones that you don't believe in. They can be anything. But if you live by them and don't believe in them, then that's like self fuck up through space and time. And I'm not going to discuss the merits of doing that because there are temporarily. But if you're flowing with me, you can imagine how my living in this now, living with this practice, observing the technical difficulties, which are not exactly out of the ordinary, but it like moving me to do this and do that. Like I didn't know I was gonna fucking talk about all this shit. And here I am, was like an intuitive nudge. That's like, you don't know the harmony you're creating, but what you're hearing, what you're feeling, what you're being is the harmony that you're tuned into. I think one of the worst things that happens to us in this like faux like societal maturation, like the pretend of growing up is that we think whatever we think, that creates a second guessing of ourselves. Like it's possible for us to have thoughts that aren't good thoughts. I've never had a not good thought. Have I ever thought of doing like really awful things to anybody, to be honest? Not really. But I know that I'm like different. But even still, why are those not good thoughts? They would maybe perhaps be not good actions, although probably appropriate, but maybe not. But why aren't they not good thoughts? And then if all our thoughts are good, if we have a thought, should it be listened to? Shouldn't it be listened to? And if we listen to all our thoughts, then instead of our minds being monkey mania and having lots of thoughts, you just listen to all your thoughts and you're following, doing everything. You just have less thoughts because your thoughts aren't trying to get around you, to get to you, to get you to listen to not your thoughts. To I don't know. I'm just saying. Let's continue. Boy. I'm gonna put you here. I know I gave it to you. That was months ago. I'm trying hard to forget. But between those drinks and the subtle things, the holes in my apology. I find it hard to take it back. So yeah, by the time this bar closes, you feel like falling down. I will carry on tonight. I don't know. And maybe we can move around a little so I can smoke too. But we'll see. I just was like, I want a cigarette. It's like listening to my intuition. And then I looked around, I was like, that seems like a lot of work. Because my like living room is, which the room I live in is a fucking mess. And I actually don't really care about you seeing any of it because I've got nothing to hide. I don't want you to know everything, but I've got nothing that I wouldn't mind you gleaning. You just, all right, how about a little less what's like all the things inside Elliot's mind? Poor wolf. This is a pretty song, but it might be a little too slow for what I'm feeling like. But we're still gonna do it. Because it's pretty, and maybe it's on because someone needs to hear it. I do. I need to hear it. It's true. It's true. Oh, it's Bon Iver's version too. I thought it was. No one's scared of love, don't let me in. Listening. It's like such a yoga playlist song. It takes me back. Like on lots of yoga playlists that I would be teaching, and this song would be on it. But Bon Iver was very popular in the yoga scene, like yoga community, the time that they came out. I told you to be patient. I told you you'd be fine. I told you you'd be better. And I told you to be kind. Different guy. You're mine. You know what? I'm gonna roll into one of my playlists, I think, because I'm not really inspired by the like autoplay suggestions. So low. Yeah, I'm so over Bon Iver. but I want to, and we'll talk about I will love you, we will fly. 1, 2, 3. I almost never stop a song before it ends, but here we go. Crazy. Sometimes I can do things that I never do. And I'm totally just going to take you with me to the edge of my balcony and we'll have a smoke. And then I'm going to sing a few more songs like for us. What's inspired me a petit peu is I was watching a fellow YouTuber's channel. Her name is Roots with a capital R, and I used to watch a lot of Sky videos because the ones that I would watch would play great music, and I'm for certain a Sky watcher. I have my own kind of collection of pictures and videos, but I don't YouTube those. But I love music and I love the sky and I love the energy of people that provide the light. So I've just been enjoying like spreading out my energy a little bit by inviting other people's energy in. And I listened to a couple of her chats and I was watching her music videos with the Skywatch, and I started singing. I was like, yo, made me think of you. That's what's up. Oh, yeah. We'll play that one next. But for now, let's try this. Let's try the movement for this cigarette. That's what I'm going to have. Oh, crazy. But you're so healthy. I know that actually nobody on my channel is maybe thinking that. And if you are, then hi, my name is Elliot and we've just met. I told you what I need. Okay. We'll plug that out. Oh, you're still reading me. Okay, good. You want to know a secret? I'm not listening to anything. You're like, I knew that. It's like, I know, because that wasn't secret. Boom, in your face, drop the mic. It's not wireless. And I'm wearing it not for no reason. They're not like noise canceling or some bullshit, but they're sound altering because they have speakers in them. And I'm especially sensitive to electromagnetic forms of energy and radiation and like radio, which isn't to say, because sensitive does not necessitate a weakness. Like, I'm also especially resilient. Like maybe uber so, but that resiliency comes from my sensitivity. It's an awareness. So by like creating a sense like this is like field stabilization. I spent a goodly amount of like meditation time and like Elliot time wearing these, and I'm comfortable with them. Also, I had an apparatus that I made, which was essentially headphones, but like this, that were for soundproofing, from meditation, from my own experience, and whatnot. So it like grounds me. I hear my environment a little bit less, but it's like when you hold a shell to your ear and you hear the ocean,
shapes amplify waves. So in another, like altogether, I would say nefarious, but really like out of ignorance, even if it's like with the most informed intent, it's still just ignorant. The circular shape of the headphones also attract and like feed essentially like noise, static, environmental patterns of waveform, like towards this direction. What does that mean? Well, I think that you actually got what I was saying, but let me give you an example. When I'm wearing headphones, and you can maybe try this, see if it works for you, because I'd be curious. You don't have to tell me, but like by you knowing, I know in a way. When I'm wearing headphones, like I live by the highway, and it's like a gentle hum. It's by no means like Back to the Future. Is it Back to the Future? No, I'm thinking, I don't know, blah, blah, blah movie with the train tracks waking you up. It's not that bad. And it's for a reason. But when I'm wearing the headphones, there's like this airy, atmospheric, like traffic sound in the air that I can hear, where like my immediate environment might be a little muffled, and that like sound effect of hearing your own voice inside your own head a little bit, like when you cover your ears, like that's happening. But the sky is quiet without the headphones on, and with the headphones on, I hear that. Now that has something to do with the shape, but it also has something to do with the fact that that's what speakers do. They take like analog like electrical signals and convert them into noise that are within like the frequency range of just this part of our sense organs that we like assert to hearing. What I can also hear, and this is like my like, is like sirens and horns and things like that. They really pick that kind of shit up. What's my beef against sirens? Well, when a siren goes off, how many in a city? I don't know if you live in a city, but even if you live in a village, because that's all there is. There's cities and there's villages. Towns. What's a town? You're a village or you're a city? Come on. I live in a town. I live in a township. You live in a township? I live in a township. Your town votes. My town ships. Your town sends things. My town sits. When the siren goes off in my city, Toronto, one individual, maybe two, in the cop car, and maybe in the chain of command, but it's not a lot of people. And this goes true for like honking and all else. But that one like point of command or awareness creates this unintelligible distortion creating, like emergency stimulating, like frequency shout that is heard by thousands. If a car, like I have about probably around 700 some odd people in my apartment building. If I think three, yeah, about that. The next major intersection over, every time like a siren goes off, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people, like apartments in my like on my street, like cul-de-sac crescent, actually is what it is. Yes, I live on a crescent. You live on the moon, I live on a crescent. You live on the moon, I live on a crescent moon. Purple, are subject to that noise. Am I hearing that and being like, oh, got to pull to the side of the car, pull to the side of the road, because the police car's coming? No. There's no reason that I need to hear that. There's no reason that thousands of people need to be subject to that noise. We don't need to know. It's not like it's like singing. That frequency, I'll have you know, because I research shit like this. Things that annoy me, I try destroy. And understanding helps a lot to destroy the like nebulous things you can't quite touch yet. The frequency range of sirens of emergency institutions worldwide are set in a range much like that of alarm clocks, which is intentional. It's an intentional frequency range that like activates the amygdala. Like it's interfering. I don't even want to say distorting, because that, even though that's more like the effect as causation, it is interfering with environment and itself. Because what do sirens do? The sirens project noise. They project noise in all directions, and then, like all noise, it bounces off its environment. It gets absorbed. And it bounces all over the place until it gets absorbed and becomes one with the like resting equilibrium, like frequency noise environment. Okay. So if that was it, that would still be really malicious. It's like, but you want to get people's attention. Think about that for more than a second, and you might realize how unnecessary and like kind of dumb that way of thinking is. It's like, I don't need to be jolted into attention. I'm driving a fucking car. If you drove by me waving your fucking hand, I'd be like, that's a police officer waving their hand. Waving the hand's a gesture of like, move along. I need to get by, an emergency. I'm like, oh, cool, good talk. Because I sing like a motherfucker in the car, but you're always driving first. Like, what do I need the fucking sirens for? It's like, you want to alert people, at a distance. It's like, why? People don't need time. It's like, they'll move as you get there. Move. And then you look behind you, like you're wherever you are, like, oh, this is happening. I'm a part of that flow. But that's not even the worst part. That the chime is designed so that when you hear it, you're not quite sure the direction that it's coming from. What? How does that even make sense? Yeah, like Wikipedia, like that's because the like ignorant, faulty logic can be made that like, well, yeah, you want whoever's around to hear it so they know it's happening, and then they'll look. Where we've got the flashing lights. It's like, wouldn't it be way more effective if like you had a noise that was like, I'm coming from this direction and I'm moving in this direction? So it's like, oh, okay, cool, this pertains to me. It's like, oh no, this doesn't pertain to me. It's like, nope. That's why when you hear sirens, like you can look around, like where the fuck is the siren thing? If you're a driver or not, we've all been wired to act that way. And just logistically, to be a judge, I've seen more accidents happen as a cause for as a cause of sirens and like that behavior than I have of like effective traffic channeling as a virtue of the sirens. like when I first started driving, like 15, 20 years ago, people, you put your hand out in between the driver's seat and the passenger seat when people let you in, or like made an allowance in any kind of traffic way. It was like ubiquitous. It happened all the time. Now it doesn't happen at all. I still do it. And I've taken to like using my hand that's out the window. It's not even an on purpose thing. It's just hi, my name is Elliot, and this is me interacting with the world. But that level of, I don't know, interaction's gone. And like circa that time, 15, 20 years ago, like all the cars went to the side of the road. Like it was, dare I say, courteous. Whereas now it's like, oh man, everyone on the road, it's like they can't be bothered, and I can't believe this, but it might be true, that they're not actually aware that like they've normalized that screeching enough so that it actually chances upon them before they realize it's like, oh, that happens, it's me. And all they're really preoccupied with is taking advantage of like the opening in traffic to see what maybe they can do to get nowhere faster, or blah, 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 blah. Let's talk about why I'm so sensitive to like the global plight that is noise pollution. Because it's not all just what you can hear. But noise, we'll call noise not music. You know, like it doesn't sing. It's just noise. Trying to be kind to your perception of that, whatever. But I don't know if that's going to be a thing. Let's just be a shadow. It suits me just fine. I have like a CD player, like an old JVC, in my living room, and it picks up the radio. How crazy is that, right? Like when you think about it, that like mechanical contraption, by virtue of its parts, picks up in the air music, messaging. Like it picks up legit signals. Like that's not coming from a cable in the wall. That's coming from the air. In like the frequency range of FM, I think is kilowatts, kilohertz. And AM is megahertz. But like, who listens to AM? And then by what's happening in radios is it's picking up a relatively like weaker signal, and then it's got amplifiers inside them that all they do is basically make it louder. They're not. It's not like a digital recomposition. It's not like this. It's putting together pieces of code that knows that when these pieces are put together in a certain way, it makes this. It's like, no. It's these signals that are literally the sound that they're conveying are being broadcast. And to make that make sense, think of if you've ever, I don't know, do kids do this anymore? But when you have two cups attached to each other with just string, and you can like go like a real long distance, and then you can talk into the cup, and then they'll hear it on the other side. It makes a difference if the string is suspended, right? Like your real voice, your voice is traveling along the line of string, which is vibrating, and you're hearing it in the cup, which is just amplifying like a softer signal. But it's just your voice. There's no like string digital signal processing, right? So that's what's happening, especially with AM, but in a more complex way with FM too. It's right convenient, ain't it? So right now, whether I'm listening to the radio or not, I'm listening to the radio. It's all around me. Chances are it's all around you too. Now, we don't have the particular like antenna shaped contraptions or mechanics to interpret those signals as what they're actually saying, or do we? And if we didn't, it's still communicating in a manner that our body uses to communicate with itself in the environment. As a point of relation, every cell in your body has like the electric potential of 80 to 60 milliwatts. And like a milliwatt, so like a tenth of a volt. Every cell has the electric potential of a tenth of a volt, which is frequency. Right? Just set a different range to translate power, not just data. But even that's relative. What is data? What is power but data? It's all like waveform signature with different capacities, but it's intrinsically informational. Right? Might not be saying much, but as we all know from, I don't know, the kindness of our hearts and like contemporary peers of annoyance, you don't have to say much. You don't have to say nothing at all to be not just annoying, but downright destructive. In fact, most destructive communications are the ones that talk a lot but don't say anything. So it's all around you. It is not unknown that these blankets of radio frequency are like determining our cellular states as a humanity. There's a reason that like I said, there's every cell in your body like has the action potential between like 80, 70, 80, 60 millivolts. Millivolts, hertz, it's all just different ways of measuring the same fucking thing. And we use different words so that people don't realize that, which is frustrating. You have to pay for conversion. Am I right? So the the electrical world is vibrating at 60 hertz or 55 hertz. Yeah, Europe and parts of it. I think it's just Europe is 55 or 50 or something like that. And in North America, it's 60, and it's probably something slightly different elsewhere. Does it need to be different? No, it's entirely different so that it creates like frequential chaos and disarray. Because given the chance, those standards would be accompanied by coherence by the planet and by ourselves, except for we then take those 60 hertz and then we throw them into all these kinds of different machines that are structured in a way to not interfere with in the same frequency range as any of the other planets, but only in like a political way, and by that I mean policy. So it's like we have like the right to use this frequency decimal point, but interfere is exactly what they do. All their different appliances operating at slightly different ranges, operating at slightly different times. There's no normalcy, right? Except for our lives, which are scheduled. I don't say scheduled anymore. I say scheduled because it's just fucking fun to say. Scheduled. There's a schedule. I'm pretty sure I'm saying it wrong. I don't care. To be monotonous, except for randomly broken up by spirits of chaos and disorder. But they're actually quite ordinary and plain too. Like, for instance, like the world scene right now. Like, frequency is very important to the establishment of where we're moving as a planet and a solar system in the galaxy. And it's like, why do trees grow with sunlight? Well, everything that's happening that's quite miraculous on our world right now is the same reason, except like the tree is our planet and the sun and all the planets, and maybe even the closest stars, maybe even the furthest ones. And the sun is something else, giving its life as its life to more life. And the purpose of all like ignorance is to disempower. So let me go back to the 50 hertz, 60 hertz. Like, if we operate at 80 to between 80 and like 50, basically, do we? Is that our normal? I'm pretty sure it's not the sun's normal. I'm pretty sure it's not the earth's normal. But by like benchmarking this frequency range around the world, it's in your ears right now, it's in your bones right now, it's in your feet right now, it's in your hair, it's in your nails, it's in every part of you. It's like it's it's not just perception. Like I don't know, I can't imagine. It's like not just your imagination. I don't know. This is things people say, that when you go out in nature, like real nature, I'm thinking of like when I visit places like Costa Rica or Southeast Asia, and I find myself in a jungle. That's not like going out of town and camping. That's like radically wild. And the glory that is like, oh my God, you feel that? Sure, it's because of all that like wildlife. But it is importantly also because all that wildlife, all that nature is disrupting to the cellular chains of money frequency. Never mind Wi-Fi and like cell towers and all that. Like that's all around you, and it doesn't give a shit about anything so much as it's coded to like interpenetrate. It's a misconception that like we need to be subliminally manipulated to have our thoughts managed. Our thoughts have origin in the music they make. And you don't need to cultivate specific ideas of division or hate or fear. All you need to do is stimulate that action to like the agent's nervous system, and then the agency of that person, that agent, will respond accordingly. And without awareness, all of this trumps everything. But now that you know that this is happening, right away, you can never, ever be controlled or manipulated or influenced in the same ways that you were unconsciously ever again. That can't be undone. We did that together. And then more and more, with your own growing awareness, like whatever your stamp collection is, that knowledge, that awareness will seep into that like good rainwater. And you'll have some creative insight that is, in actuality, your own way of creating coherence in like a static environmental order because of what you now know you're up against. It's crazy. It's crazy. And does it all need to be this way? No. But if we didn't have the internet, we'd have no. That's another. I spoke, was it yesterday, about fundamental assumptions. That's another fundamental assumption, like that the way that the internet works, the way that our computers work, is the only way that they could work, and that without them the way that they are, that we wouldn't have technology per se. For example, there is no reason that all radio, Wi-Fi, that everything's on all the time. It's much easier to manipulate people, but think of like having a store and you sell things. You've got your hours. Think of, the Pony Express. You have like set expectations for message delivery. And when I'm not using the internet, my modem, my router is feeding my environment internet anyways. But you can plug that shit out. Of course I can. But it's still going up to the point where I have control over like it's like shut off, which is the power, which is the cable, the ends of the cable. And do you think that signal just disappears at the end of your cable outlet because it's not attached to anything? Fuck no. Of course, it's going into your environment. If it was going into your TV, it would give you cable. Well, it's not going into your TV. It's going into the air. It's giving the air that same information. And all our machines are in a constant state of hearing, of audience. not really listening, but this is again part of the pollution night. So and like crazy awareness, because it's all around us, but we don't really know. We're turning into this like keyless world, which just makes us even easier to manage. Now, you can believe that you have the key to whatever you feel you've paid the right to gain entry to, and on a whim, that power can be taken away from you. The door's still there. The room is still there. You're still there. Space is there. But all that needs to change is the ID that receiver is looking for, and you're locked out, just like the very concept of that we need to lock anybody out. But as an example, so you've got your key, for your apartment, your work, your whatever, your fob. What that is a circuit. It's not producing electrical signals all the time, all right? But what it is doing is it's arrayed in such a way so that when it does come in contact with an electrical field, then the electrical field you can think of electrical fields as how the cordless charging of things, right? When it enters that electrical field, then it's powered up, and then by being powered up, it runs that signal, it runs the circuit, and it's circuited in such a way that it's been given, or rather, it has like an ID to it, and the receiver, the wall mount, whatever, is programmed to know the ID of that and accept it, and then like perform an action. So whenever anything that is a fob enters an electrical field, not a specific electrical field, like an electrical field, a weak one at that, like think about your hand against the receiver of your fob. Your hand is entering an electric field. Crazy! So crazy! Like that kind of electrical field, it's essentially communicating that signal. It's like signatures, like, hey, what's up, I'm here. But only that receiver is tuned to perform a certain action based on that signature. But that doesn't stop the truth of everyone's fobs are constantly screaming out their identification, not in like a privacy way, but in like a pollution way, like a chatterbox way, to their environment. And it's a weak conveyance of waveform, right? It's if you like in an ocean, in a still ocean with deep currents, a tiny rock would make a ripple, but it wouldn't ripple like it would be stilled by the deep currents. But where do you? It's like, where do you keep your keys in your pocket? Keep it in your purse? Do you keep it next to other objects that also would be receiving this information? Like everything is being keyed, encoded in like this polluted, disordered way, and it's like a scared child. And by that I just mean like in a state of unawareness, like innocent unawareness, in an environment that it doesn't know, that's unfamiliar, and doesn't have the skills to like interact with any unknown environment. Like the unknown isn't scary once you figure out that you can be a person that is prepared for any unknown. It doesn't, like the same skills or tools don't have to change with every specific unknown. It's just if you don't know something, there are ways that you can feel safe and content and in like self-control, self-mastery to approach that. The unknown doesn't need to be scary. But that's only the half that I wasn't going to talk about. But talking about it with you, which was cool, I was like, I realized, wow, it's pretty fucked up, all those fobs chirping. But all the receivers that are generating this electrical field, and in turn ask, like keyed to listen to the specific like frequential chirping of these keys to then perform this mechanism action. Those are like, if you can imagine how far away you can activate your fob from the thing, in that range, always this machine is producing, like, you can think of it as Wi-Fi, like its own little bubble of Wi-Fi. Why is that important? Because there's no empty space. Every fob receiver in the fucking world is on a constant supply of like life force energy called electricity, and it's just spilling it. It's not like the electrical fob approaches, because that would be kinder. Or even just like, dare I say, you might have to push a button to turn the electrical field on and then use your fucking fob swipey. No, it's always on. And the way to enslave effectively anyone or anything, I wouldn't know by virtue of my experience of enslaving things. I would, as my experience of being a slave. And I'm not even talking about like past life, this life, no, I mean like, hi, my name is Elliot and I'm a slave. I'm free, but not within society. But like, I don't know, that's the game we're playing. Create a free world where there is no one. It's death by 1,000 cuts. It's all the telephones. Like, I have landline telephone, like cordless telephones. They're by the same maker. I think they're both Panasonic or something like that. And the ones that my mom used, because she uses landline a lot and she talks on the phone a lot, they're like dusted, destroyed. And I've got these two like new ones. They work really well. They're right, proper, ready to be dusted. And but they don't have a base. They've only got like the receptacles, so they have no way of connecting to receiving and interpreting the telephone line information. What they do is they're all they are is power transmissions. Like they're for charging. There's no there's none of that. The phones do that themselves, but they communicate with the base, and so it doesn't have a base. But we have a base from the old ones. And I mean, these phones are all circa the same fucking time period, because we don't live, like, they're the same fucking, they're made in the same now-ish. And no, they use different base, like they fit in the holders, sure, but they can't be used because they're coded to work on a different like communication bandwidth, a very specific one. So now everybody in like an apartment building or a complex or anything like that has all these different phones, landline phones in the cordless. It's so convenient, that are operating in slightly different bandwidth ranges. And of course, who has phones anymore? So now we have cell phones, and what do you think they do? Everything is proprietary. And radio bandwidth is like secretly as well as overtly like guarded more than gold. If you want to find what's really important, look at the things where people have no freedom over, and you don't talk about it. Not because it's hush hush, but because you think it's not important. But there's life beyond 88.1 and 107.9. And skipping to the end, telepathy is more than just about communicating between people and conveying thoughts. It's empathy, it's connection. It's not exclusive between humanities. It's telepathy is one's connection to like the source field. It exists between all creatures that exist on whatever bandwidth of like frequency range that one is operating on, and we're operating on the earthling bandwidth. So the animals, the trees, the seas, the winds, right? It's like winds. Wind's not electrical. It's like, what do you think wind is? It's a good one. What do you think wind is? It's like, wind is like part of our life. The wind. It's wind. What's wind? Is there a cloud somewhere going? Like, what's causing that? You think it's coming from outer space? It's like we have an endless supply of this thing called wind. These jet streams and wind and clouds. We take these things for super granted. When wind is is like electrical pressure mediation and balancing of polarization. Right? I don't need to go into further there, but like it's a good query, like things that you don't know to question, because if you question them, it'll open your eyes to all the obvious truths. It's like, what the fuck is wind? Hi, Gigi. I know. It's really lovely to it's like you were here the whole time. It's really nice to see you. And that's kind of what I want to talk about with what we have been discussing is the unseen electricity, is the visible spectrum of light is unseen electricity. Sound is unseen electricity. All light is unseen electricity. The death by 1,000 cuts is the splicing internet, and I can feel it. So, Elliot, do you think you're affecting the internet? It's like, yeah. You know, like when you used to like drive under a bridge and certain radio stations would get disrupted and certain radio stations wouldn't. It's because the bridge is affecting the signal. You know how like you can affect a radio station's clarity just by your body. Like, you know, like if you're fiddling with it and it's like, oh, you can hear it over here, you can't get clear over there. You can, yeah. And so there might not be big movement, but here I am as like an energetic generator of frequency ranges that is not separate from the like Terra Genesis electro biorhythmic field of unseen electricity. It's like peeing in the pool. You pee in the corner of the pool. Wherever you pee in the pool, you pee in the whole pool. And all of these devices, not intrinsic as being like an aspect of like electronic, but by design, are like all these little squirts of fucking piss in the pool that is, to put it the most plainly, atmospheric like electrical conductance. I can't remember the number exactly, but like, do you know that between the surface of the Earth and like the stratosphere, not even the ionosphere, but like the stratosphere, like the upper surface ceiling of that, like you only have to go to like the first 100 meters or something like that into the sky. At any point in like the centimeters, there's like 1,000 megawatts of energy available. I don't know if it's 1,000, but even if it was like up one, that's 1,000 watts because there's a mega, and or 100. I don't know, man. I get confused with all the things that I don't care about. It's like, oh, it's just for confusion? Well, fuck you then. I'll make up my own metric system. But the reason that we're not constantly all electrified is that we're grounded. But that doesn't mean anything except for an outlet for that potency of electricity to flow. And that stream of electricity, that current, by virtue of its stability, can then carry smaller oscillations, signature waveforms of information in it, right? If you've got something that doesn't change, then you can tack on something that does change, and it can ride it from one point in space and time to another point in space and time. And this is radio. This is it's like, this is Wi-Fi. It's like, Wi-Fi is radio. It's like, what is Wi-Fi? It's like, it's radio. What are your cell phones? Radio. I mean, like, everything can work like a walkie-talkie? Yep. Why do you think walkie-talkies are so fucking expensive for what they are? And, like, it is like people in America are, like, it's in their voice. When they talk about it, it's like fear of what you're allowed to use radios for, and what like, you need a license. They need to know. It's deeply regulated, because if you knew that you didn't need an internet service provider to create local, like, mesh networks of data interconnectivity that whose gateways weren't based on arbitrary, not just arbitrary technologies like cell towers, but also arbitrary social political structures like internet service providers. And I'm going to venture also things like the underwater oceanic cables that we think are responsible for linking the whole world together in internet. Because you know what? In a better world, like, maybe it is challenging to link like meshes of like local radio connectivity across the ocean. But we downright, if we wanted to, would have figured out a more loving way than by polluting our ocean, not just with the cables, but with, and not just like, I mean, not like the objects themselves that now all that like sea life, and that goes for the mud, has to deal with. But all that fucking chatter, it's like, it's insulated for data transmission. It's insulated for business purposes. But you're damn right, it's not shielded for noise pollution. And it's just a grand deception that what I'm talking about is not known. It's all known. How do you think I got it? The green detector die. Right. Actually, let's be the green detector die, darling, because we're flashing green. There's pee everywhere. There's pee everywhere. Did you hear that? Can you hear the sirens? Where's that? Where's that come from? I don't mind sharing a little bit more specifically the nefarious nature of it, but it also is a signal that is shaped in a way to be picked up. So to follow streams, like you can't know where that siren is coming from, but you sometimes will hear sirens and you'll never guess, especially if you live in a city, how far that sound is traveling to get to you, and you'd never guess the voids and gaps of that sound transmission that are looped over or of like nullified and then picked back up by shapely antennic receivers to make their way to you. And I can share based on my own experience, they are especially sensitive towards any like electric fields of coherence that don't allow it in, that are resistant to the interpenetration of that waveform signature. And that can be my sovereignty as a human being, but that's also like the literal like design technology that I fit around with and play with, because like my life is an experiment. I'll show you as an example. This is a length of copper tubing. The copper is hollow. It's probably like 1/8 of an inch. One end is topped with an aluminum kind of tube that is like bent to meet at an angle, and it's closed. So it takes the one open end of the copper, which is still open. It's still an open copper tube, but it translates into the aluminium. It's another fun way to say different. It's like that's I think the English way of saying it, or the Western aluminium. It's fun. Go YouTube for introducing me to different ways of saying. And then this is, I think I took this off of like a lamp or something like that, and it's just threaded alongside. And what this machine really has, it's changed shape as I fiddle around with it, and it's a practice in intuitive creation, because it's a lie that you need to know the specific details, like the math or the measurements of a thing, to make it specifically and most poignantly the most perfect object of like your creator's desire, your creatorship's desire, right? What's the intent? And part of my intent as like an artist is to find the way that life wants to be, and do my loving part to make what I touch into that thing. Something that I've always believed but would never have known that I believe, but can now put to words, is everything is alive. Everything is alive. Organic, inorganic, everything has the life in it. And as an aspect of the life, everything then, like, consciousness is not emergent. Consciousness is the fluid. Consciousness is the matter. And so everything everything has consciousness. Yeah, but if you take that down to reasonability, then it doesn't, not everything is self-conscious. And I would argue that most human beings, like 99% of the human beings on this planet, are not self-aware. We say what makes us human is self-awareness, but introspection, reflection, adaptation, change, conscious change, conscious confrontation of self that results in a confrontation in your environment, where you can delineate whatever the fuck you are as a thing or not, with your environment of not yous, but also a part of you. It's like, wow, that was kind of complex. It's like, shouldn't self-consciousness be as an aspect of the universe, it's being itself, exploring what it could be? And if everything is alive, by virtue of my definition of consciousness, of living, which is to say, innervated with energy, what we call electricity, but it's in all its form. If it's innervated with energy, it's alive. And everything on this planet, at least, is alive. It might not breathe, it might not have the escalations of consciousness, but it's impossibly separate from it. So in creating whatever the fuck this is, it's been like a shaping, a listening to how it wants to be, how it wants to move, where it gives, where it shows resistance. And then instead of pushing through resistance like we've been told, and sometimes had to, like, there's no mistake that I'm getting a little like ungrounded and passionate and specific, and like the sirens are going off like wazoo, but what you don't know, like you, not you, but them, is you can be music. And when you're music, it's impossible for a sound to get to you and not become a part of that music. It falls in line with the tune, or else it gets destroyed. And you'll never know it was there. Because your harmony is the earth's harmony, which is God's harmony, which is all's harmony. And when you know that, you can create distortion like a fucking rock star, you know? Even things that don't sound good can sound like they belong. And we need things to not sound good, to not feel good. We just need all that stuff to be temporary. Because what is life except for temporality and fun experience? It's really cool seeing the way that it looks from your perspective, but also from mine. Super cool. So like this, for instance, I call it a machine. It very literally will take the energy that passes through it. It's copper. So what it does is it attracts like electromagnetic information, energy, and it conveys it along a route. But what route? Which direction would it go? But because I've placed objects on it, it gives itself its own route of movement. If I didn't have the funnel or the aluminium like capped pole, then it would take its direction from the environment, but it would still offer a direction. It wouldn't just like smash into each other. Energy flows along it. Like when the electrical cables, everything, yeah, there's no there's nothing in the copper. It's not like energy is electricity and it's moving in the copper. All wires are roads. All wires are roads more than they are tunnels. And when we wrap and twine these wires, you're creating more surface area, and that's what the multiplicity of like wires and shit like that creates, like higher levels of bandwidth and blah 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 blah. So, for instance, this is hollow, and because it's hollow, it will. I mean, it's in our environment, so it's certainly conveying energy along its outer surface, but its outer surface is being polarized by virtue of the spatial opportunity of the hollowness and the enclosed nature of the tube. And because of it's less important that it's copper and aluminum, and more important that it's a different metal. Because it's a different metal, its communication shifts, and it creates something within itself. I've moved this thing all around my house. It's changed shape. It's grown. And my whole life is actually filled with these types of things, because when you're a fucking spiritual gangster, fucking top-notch, demiurge slayer, assassin of all the light bearers, fucking glaring, they're like light pollution. I am the night, the night. You need interesting forms of defense, of energetic defense. But here's the thing: you don't approach it with the attitude of attacking and defending. I would say that I've only ever really kind of categorized that only in ways that I would find fun, enlightening, like teams. But all of this self-defense isn't because I'm vulnerable. It is, but my intention, my heart space is to create. I collect a lot of, I have a couple, I've built a relationship, but I'm moving towards signing off, and I want to read that. But I'll share this. There's a boy in the neighborhood who is on the spectrum of uniqueness, and he goes through all the recycling. He's got his own business of taking alcohol containers, like bottles and cans, and returning them for money. And so, while I've lived here, I don't drink, really, ever. I'm not against it. I will drink and I will enjoy, but it's never really been my thing. And alcohol doesn't affect me like it does most people, which might be part of the reason. Love me some good green medicinal flow. And it's just about everything, drugs / fun related. Everything in moderation, and I'm the moderator. What up? And so I asked him to take the tops off the bottles that he's been collecting, because those just get thrown away. And if you could collect those and give me a bunch, in part to create a gifting exchange between us, because I just gift him my empties and he's doing a service, but I never take for granted the loving exchange, the opportunity of that. And also, I didn't really know, but his face when he gave me that first bag, he was so happy to have done this for me, it lit my fucking heart out. It was amazing. But like, what am I going to do with all those bottle caps? Or like the bag of rice size, because it's a bag of rice, repurposed, filled with my cigarette butts, just the filters, no tobacco, because I've smoked all that. I'm poor, or have been, and whatever. But I hang on to those. Why? Because I'm passionate about finding all the ways that we've polluted and turning that around to have never polluted in the first place. How can we use what we already have to make not just beautiful things, but better than before things? All the technology we throw out, all the tubes and wires, it's been like my intuitive practice and learning to actually not cut things or to physically break them, because everything is alive. So it's, if I have like a copper tube or like a wooden plank, and I can think of how I would create something, but it involves sawing or anything like that, like intuition almost always guides me away from changing or breaking the state of matter, and instead finding a way to create like a pocket of beauty. And it doesn't even have to be visual, because not all senses are visual, and all consciousness is a sense, for beauty and energy and life to flow through. So I have like a lot of like recycled items that look like garbage, and I keep them around because they have a signature, and I don't need to do things with them in my mind. And I love that this is coming up in me now, because I've kind of been struggling with identifying it, but I'm downright passionate about waste and pollution. And it's a lie that we live in a world that is like so destructive. It's like, no, our imbalance is faux creativity. We're not consumers, we're fakers, makers. We make things endlessly. We're always making something, and we don't send things off. Funerals have lost their like sanctity. Even if you think of the most sanctified funeral you've ever attended as nothing compared to the truth of our past and the respect of the stillness of our life, spirit, and soul embodied in a corpse, and the manner with which we send anything into its next energetic transition is paramount to its flow and where it goes. And the last thing that we need is to make more shit. Instead, I want to help the world realize it's like help the world realize it's already beauty. Because I've taken apart so many printers and computers and discs, and pieces of technology that like have a fraction of the electronic potential, or rather a fraction of that electronic potential is what we use to send people to the moon, supposedly or not. We are surrounded by magic technology. And because everything's alive and everything's connected, we make it all so fucking mundane, because we're conditioned to see ourselves and each other as that fucking boring. And it's just not true. And to be beautiful, to be art, It's not about what you do, and it's not about what you can do. It's like the lie of all the light in the world, because in the dark it's scary and you can't see in the dark. It's like, no, turn the lights off. Let your eyes adjust. See how you can see in the dark? That's like beauty in this world. It's everywhere. It's inside each of us. And it really shows itself in the lovely people that are flowed our way. And all we need to do is turn the lights off and realize, oh, I can see. And if I can see with the lights off, then that means I can probably see with the lights on. Which means maybe the light and the dark doesn't decide what I'm able to see, but my heart does. Maybe? Yeah. Thank you for joining me, Gigi. You're a fucking gangster. Like you, but you already know that. And it's a fundamental assumption that the things that we already know don't gain momentum or flow in love when we say it like we're not trying to inform you. You're beautiful and special and like so one of a kind. In like the most wow way that in our, I would say, cosmically, expressively unique times, it doesn't need necessarily be that way, but everything in my experience has kind of pointed that, and I've argued it. So I really do believe that this is special even to God, like God's source, and that like all of everything called upon the reason that you do all the loving that you do, call on the reasons, and across space and time in forms of energy, you coalesced into yourself as not an amalgamation of all the loving choices, but as the mysterious something that all that love finds. Because everything found is a flow through. And in the most unique, trying times of challenge and difficulty, and a very specific and insanely tragic spiritual define, like things will never be this bad again, and not in a way that we can even say on YouTube that'll make sense, but in that deep soul spirit way of knowing that like this person doesn't know me, this person doesn't know you, and they don't know that whatever your life circumstances look on the outside, you have suffered more than anyone else in the whole world, for the whole world, and not as a martyr, but as a lover. But God knows. And that's always true. Because you can see in the dark and in the light before you know it. And what's there before you can see it is there before you can see it. And after all I've said and done in this share, this final conclusion has nothing to do with anything like aforementioned, and everything to do with just me and you. All the me and yous, me and you. Because it's a fundamental assumption that the exclusivity of me and you can't be shared with anyone and everyone that allows love to flow through. And I know because of my temperament and for what is hard for me to learn, so I know it's special for me to share, and always has been. I'm like lovely to look at and to listen to as a sound. It's not just me, but it's me and you that create the pollutive disruptions and interference, internet interference. Because my current isn't going anywhere between you and I.